Tab Hunter was once the ultimate heartthrob of America. Blonde hair, blue eyes, a perfectly sculpted physique, and a smile that could melt every gaze on screen. To the world, he seemed to have everything: fame, fortune, and the kind of romances people only dreamed about. But at the age of 86, he shocked everyone by revealing a dark secret he had carried for nearly his entire life. One that could make old Hollywood bow its head in shame. It was a truth bound up in his hidden identity, buried love affairs, ruthless betrayals, and a calculated media conspiracy that almost destroyed his career. What truly unfolded behind the glittering curtains of Hollywood's golden age? And why did a man once adored as a national treasure have to live in fear for decades? To uncover the full story, we must first go back to where the tragedy began. In July 1931, at the Flower Fifth Avenue Hospital in Manhattan, a child entered the world in silence. His father came to see him only once, staying for no more than 3 minutes. He placed a single Hershey's chocolate bar on the hospital bed, then turned away without leaving a name, a word of concern, or even a final glance. On the birth certificate, the doctor was forced to write just 2 words: male. That child's real name was Arthur Kelm, though the world would one day know him as Tab Hunter. At that time, he was simply a fatherless boy growing up with his mother and older brother in a shabby apartment in Flatbush, Brooklyn. His mother, Gertrude Jelen, a German immigrant, was a strict, cold woman who never hugged her children, never once said, "I love you." Arthur's days were filled with meager meals, the steady wear of a sewing machine late into the night, and dreams often interrupted by silent cries hidden beneath the blanket. From a very young age, Arthur sensed he was different. Not because he was shy or disliked baseball like other boys, but because he felt a strange stir in his heart when he caught sight of a classmate changing shirts in the locker room. At first, he thought it was mere admiration, but by the age of 12, after secretly kissing his best friend at a church camp in Albany, he realized it was something more. Before the moment could fade from memory, disaster struck. Another child had witnessed the kiss and reported it to the camp nuns. Arthur was dragged into the courtyard, forced to kneel before the entire camp as the head nun screamed in his face, calling him a pervert and declaring his actions the sin of Satan. That very night, he was expelled, sent away with no ride home, no one to accompany him. He walked for more than 4 hours in the rain, soaked to the bone, his spirit crushed. When he finally returned home, he thought his mother might defend him, but Gertrude only said coldly, "Why did you bring such shame to me?" Those words became a scar that never healed. From that moment on, Arthur lived in constant fear. Fear of being found out, fear of being abandoned again. Hoping for redemption, he once went to confess at St. Francis Church near Nordstrom Street, but instead of comfort, the priest slammed the confessional door and shouted, "Get out of God's house, you filthy creature!" His teenage years became a double life. At school, he laughed when he had to, pretending to be like everyone else, dodging advances from girls. At night, he quietly wrote down his forbidden dreams in a small notebook hidden beneath his mattress. Sometimes he thought of ending it all. One evening in 1947, standing on Manhattan Bridge and staring at the icy river below, he placed one foot on the edge. But a passing police car, its siren slicing through the night, jolted him back from the brink. Arthur knew he could not live like this forever. But he also knew that if anyone ever uncovered the truth, he would lose everything. And he was right. Just a few years later, when he finally set foot in Hollywood, the glittering world he had always dreamed of, he discovered it was the very place that would push him deeper into the shadows. In 1949, at only 18 years old, Arthur Kelm, the shy boy who had once been expelled from church and lived in fear throughout his childhood, caught the attention of a man who would change everything. His name was Dick Clayton. They met by chance at a horse stable in Griffith Park. And after a long look, Dick told Arthur a single sentence that would alter the course of his life. "You have the face of America." Soon afterward, Arthur was invited to a private party in the Hollywood Hills. Among the guests was Henry Wilson, one of the most powerful men in the entertainment industry at the time. Henry was far more than just a manager. He was a kingmaker, the man who had shaped the careers of heartthrobs like Rock Hudson, Troy Donahue, and Guy Madison. He knew exactly what he wanted: a boy who was beautiful, compliant, and hiding something. After just one night, Arthur's identity was rewritten. Henry stripped him of his real name and gave him a new one: Tab Hunter. Tab like a bill waiting to be paid, and Hunter like a relentless pursuer. It sounded glamorous, but Tab had never been asked for his opinion. Overnight, he entered Hollywood as a manufactured product, a label stuck on without warning of the cost. Within 2 years, Tab's face and physique were everywhere on the covers of Photoplay, Modern Screen, and Life magazine. There were semi-nude photographs by the pool, scripted interviews alongside famous actresses, and rumors of secret dates with Natalie Wood, all carefully staged by Henry, who directed it all like a play in which Tab had no choice but to recite every line. But every spotlight came with a price. Henry controlled nearly every aspect of Tab's existence, from his social calendar and the answers he gave in interviews to the way he stepped out of a car, refusing me instant career death. And worse still, behind the guise of protection, Henry began to cross personal boundaries. Tab would later recall how Henry would call in the middle of the night demanding to know who he was sleeping with. Some nights, Henry would arrive uninvited at the apartment Tabs shared with his brother, bringing liquor and an air of ownership. A friend of Tab's once witnessed Henry rifling through his drawers, searching for personal letters, and then threatening to expose them if Tab didn't comply. It was during this time that Tab's love life began to crumble. Forced to parade around with female co-stars for the sake of the press, he was also made to turn away from real relationships. One of those was with a man named David, whom Tab had met during a horseback ride in Enino. Henry directly threatened David, and just weeks later he vanished without saying a word. Only much later did Tab learn that David had moved all the way to Denver to escape the trouble. At 86, reflecting on his life in his memoir, Tab confessed he had been celebrated as the image of pure masculinity, yet never allowed to truly be a man. He was, in his own words, nothing more than a mannequin crafted from fear and control. Hollywood didn't just drain talent, it was a suffocating feeling. Any love he had could only survive behind locked doors. Affection existed only in the dark, for a single wrong camera flash could destroy everything. While Hollywood worked relentlessly to shape Tab Hunter into a national emblem of manhood, his heart was left struggling in silence at the bottom of an unlit pit. In front of the cameras, he smiled beside Natalie Wood, laughed next to Debbie Reynolds, and was endlessly linked to glamorous women by gossip columns. But when the lights went out, Tab returned alone to his small Fairfax apartment, staring at a half-burned cigarette and thinking quietly about the man he truly loved. One of his deepest relationships was with Anthony Perkins, the rising Broadway actor who would later become famous for Psycho in 1960. They lived only a block apart in West Hollywood, often bumping into each other at film premieres, but always slipping home by separate routes. They existed like two shadows, close yet never allowed to be seen together in daylight. Over time, the relationship began to fracture, not from a lack of love, but from the growing terror of exposure. In late 1956, a photographer from Confidential magazine secretly captured a picture of Anthony and Tab leaving the Mexican restaurant El Coyote in Beverly. There was nothing intimate in the image, just a friendly pat on the shoulder, but that was enough to inspire a story. In January 1957, Confidential ran an article titled "Hollywood's Golden Boy Scene Whispering in the Dark." The grainy black and white photograph sent ripples across the country. Though no names were printed, everyone knew it pointed to Tab Hunter. Fans became uneasy. In Texas and Louisiana, theaters pulled his posters claiming they refused to promote someone who might undermine family values. A letter-writing campaign under the banner, "We Deserve Moral Stars," collected over $18,000. Signatures demanding Warner Brothers drop him if the rumors prove true. Henry Wilson, still Tab's manager, called an emergency meeting that stretched over 2 days. In the end, he issued a public statement declaring that Tab was in a serious relationship with a female magazine editor named Alice. Henry's public defense of Tab came with a hidden move behind the scenes. Quietly, he handed over $15,000 to Confidential's editor, convincing them to rewrite their next piece. What could have been a headline about a gay love scandal was transformed into a harmless male actor causing commotion at a party. At the same time, Tab was booked to appear on The Ed Sullivan Show, performing the Tinder ballad Young Love, a calculated attempt to soothe public unease and reinforce his image as a romantic leading man for women. The show shattered viewership records, but for Tab, it was also the night his heart broke. While he sang into the camera, an assistant slipped him a folded note from Anthony Perkins. Inside were 7 words that ended their relationship. "I can't do this anymore. They'll destroy both of us." The blow didn't stop there. The rumors kept multiplying. Tabloids claimed he was booking hotel rooms for all-male parties at the Roosevelt, that he had an affair with his personal trainer, and that he'd been spotted with an Italian designer in Palm Springs. None of these stories were proven, but they were repeated so often that they hardened into truth in the public mind. Tab spent enormous sums to keep his private life from becoming tabloid fodder, covering the theft of love letters, paying off hotel staff who threatened to reveal details, even helping friends fired for being gay to prevent them from selling stories. At one point, he looked at his account and saw only $900 left. Nearly everything else has gone to silence people he once trusted. Every relationship he had, whether fleeting or deep, ended in secrecy, not because he lacked love, but because he was never allowed to express it openly. He could not love truthfully, freely, or hold a man's hand in daylight. Looking back, he summed it up with one bittersweet sentence. "I had romances beautiful enough to make movies about, but I lived in a Hollywood that wouldn't let them on screen." Just as it seemed things were calming down, Tabb accepted an invitation to a small gathering in Walnut Park. He expected nothing more than a relaxed night with a handful of friends. What he didn't know was that the police had been watching the house for 2 weeks. On that autumn night in 1952, they burst in with a warrant, shouts echoing through the rooms, flashlights sweeping the crowd, and Tabb hunters dragged from the kitchen in the chaos. The evening had begun innocently enough. A private get-together of about 17 guests, actors like Rory Calhoun, Broadway dancers, local jazz players, and members of Los Angeles' underground scene. A friend named Terry had urged Tabb to come and escape Hollywood's suffocating beauty. Standards for a while, but it was a trap. Among the guests was Michael, a former employee of the Chateau Marmont, who spent the night quietly taking photographs of intimate moments. Those pictures went straight to Ben Fowler, a journalist for confidentiality hungry for scandal. Another flashy young man at the party, known for reckless behavior and whispered drug use, was also suspected of leaking private tapes. Tabb had no involvement in the alleged activities at the party that night, but simply being present was enough to throw him straight into the center of a media storm. Police had been secretly watching the house for 2 weeks, and at exactly 11:45 p.m., undercover LAPD officers burst in, shouting and reading a search warrant. A confidential photographer captured the moment Tabb was dragged out of the small kitchen, pressed to the cracked tile floor amid empty beer cans. A police officer's voice rang out, "Hunter, you're under arrest." That chaotic scene shattered the carefully constructed image Tabb and his team had spent years building. Not long after, a leaked internal document revealed that Henry Wilson, Tabb's former manager, had quietly negotiated with Confidential to bury a scandal involving Rock Hudson. In exchange, Henry directed Ben Fowler to target Tabb to protect his golden goose. This betrayal produced a sensational headline. Limpest Pajama Party exposed with Tabb's face prominently on the cover, alongside witness Rose Delgado's claim that she saw him embracing an Italian dancer. Hollywood shook. Radio station KNX and TV channel KTLA repeatedly reported on the Walnut Park scandal. By mid-November, the backlash erupted. The Los Angeles Examiner received over 10,000 letters demanding Warner Brothers terminate Tabb's contract. A director who once respected and bluntly declared at the Hollywood Golden Boot Awards, "We care more about the image than the name." TV Guide, citing a public poll, listed Tabb among the top 10 most disliked stars of the month. Amid the chaos, former lover Ronnie Robertson demanded hush money, threatening to sell a batch of September 1952 love letters filled with coded notes, secret meeting spots, and plans in a Nino to Reuters or Confidential unless paid $10,000 within 3 days. Tabb, with little choice, gave in, draining nearly all his savings meant for personal promotion. Warner Brothers still tried to salvage what remained of his public image. Jack Warner hired attorney Greg Bozer to handle the crisis. The charges were reduced from immoral conduct to disturbing the peace with only a $50 fine, no criminal record, and a threat to sue Confidential for invasion of privacy. Meanwhile, the studio launched an emergency PR campaign, organizing a charity dinner on November 27, 1952, where Tabb appeared with actress Susan Harrison. Photos ran in Life, and Photoplay and fan mail magazines received handwritten letters from Tabb reassuring fans. Yet, even though his body was unharmed, his reputation in Hollywood was broken. Contracts and casting offers vanished. A director in San Diego bluntly told him, "You're too big a risk. We can't put our trust in the wrong place again." From the breakout star of 1952, Tabb became his own obstacle. When he left Warner Brothers, he carried only an envelope containing his termination agreement and a symbolic $10,000 check. No one saw him off. No one met his eyes. Only the sharp winter sunlight on the studio steps and a few paparazzi hiding behind a truck to catch the moment America's golden boy fell. No major studio from Paramount to 20th Century Fox dared to offer him a long-term deal. Roles that once drew long audience lines were replaced by a few lines in B-movies or small theater productions in Santa Monica and Bakersfield. The tabloids never let him go. Confidential kept running issues aimed at Tabb. Screen Scandals published a fake photo suggesting he was entering a gay bar in San Francisco. In reality, a garage near a friend's home. Midnight Weekly screamed Tabb Hunter, blue eyes, dark secrets, turning him into a ghost of the stage. Tabb even sent a letter asking Fan Magazine Weekly to retract a claim that he lived with 3 male dancers in Laurel Canyon, but they refused, citing close sources. The more he fought back, the hungrier the public became for blood. With no spotlight and nowhere to hold on to, Tab sank into quiet years, working as a late-night news MC in Palm Springs, playing minor roles in Bye Bye Birdie and Fresno, occasionally voicing truck commercials. Each time he stepped outside, he had to lift his head and smile faintly, hiding eyes that had gone dim. In his memoir, Tab admitted, "I survived by shrinking until no one remembered to hate me anymore." But Hollywood didn't forget. The door that seemed forever shut cracked open with an unexpected offer from an independent director. Tab returned to the screen not as the familiar boy next door, but in the rebellious, offbeat role of the dark comedy Polyester, starring alongside drag legend Divine under the direction of John Waters. The unlikely pairing became a sensation in the indie film world, hailed as the rebirth from the ashes. The real revival, however, came when Tab decided to face the part of his life he had hidden. In 2005, at age 74, he released his memoir, Tab Hunter Confidential, publicly coming out as gay for the first time and recounting the years he was forced to live a lie in a ruthless Hollywood where power, sex, and fear intertwined like a labyrinth. He spoke of his manager's betrayal, the relentless press harassment, the lonely nights writing love letters only to burn them in fear of exposure. "I loved but had to love in silence. I cried but had to cry in someone else's role." In 2015, the documentary of the same name premiered at the South by Southwest Film Festival and later at Tribeca, marking the first time Hollywood seriously listened to the cruelty once imposed on him. For the last 35 years of his life, Tab lived peacefully with his partner Alan Glazer in Santa Barbara, tending flowers, caring for horses, and no longer hiding anything. When asked why he chose to tell it all, he smiled. "I was tired of living as a character written by someone else. I wanted to be the one telling my own story, and I want to thank Alan Glazer for standing by me when I had nothing." Tab Hunter died on July 8, 2018, just 3 days shy of his 87th birthday from a sudden heart attack at his quiet home. By the time he closed his eyes for the last time, the world had changed. The very things that once terrified him, that once forced him into the shadows, that nearly took everything from him, were now spoken of openly and with pride. It is the tear-stained truth behind Tab Hunter's smile. The matinee idol who once captivated America, who endured, stayed silent, then rose to tell it all, not to reclaim glory, but to ensure those who came after him would never have to live in the dark as he once did.